to Keto and Crime and Thought Crime. Today, got a special treat for you. I'm starting a new series called Keto and Crime Classics. And these are older videos of mine that did not, either my channel was super small at the time, which I'm still super small, but it was microscopic at the time when I did it, and did not get a whole lot of play, but I think they're very interesting topics. I'm not going to do this with all of them, just a select few, probably less than 10, and I have over 400 videos on my channel. So very, very small percentage. And I'm going to start releasing them along with the new videos, one a week, just to kind of give you something else to watch, especially if you're on quarantine. And I will definitely make sure they are very interesting topics, and I want to start that today. Think of this as, you know, kind of the Turner Classic Movie reframing of movies where you have to talk about it in the historical context. Think of these in that way. So today I'm going to release the very first of those about the band 𝗏𝗏, which is actually a multi-instrumentalist that is basically a one-man band. I am so sorry. That is the downfall of recording from my office. One of my dogs, it doesn't matter if it's the landscaper, the trash man, or a UPS guy, he's going to have to run through here and show his dominance. But anyway, I apologize for that. But the band 𝗏𝗏, which is he's a multi-instrumentalist that basically plays all of his own instruments, but he literally fooled the world in 2018. He has talent, but he fooled the world by putting on a fake European tour. And he faked his own production company, his own ticket broker, his own management company, and he actually hired a band and went on tour in what he says was a social experiment. But it did get him notoriety. He sold a lot of albums, and he actually had a real European tour the year after because of it. And I think it's a very interesting story as somebody like me who grew up in the 80s and lived through 𝗵𝗍 Vanilli. That was kind of and I do have a video on 𝗵𝗍 Vanilli, by the way. It's right up here. I'm not going to repurpose that one, but you can watch the classic up here. In that case, you had people that didn't necessarily have the talent, but they had the machine in place, and so they were able to get pretty far. But with this guy, he had the talent but didn't have the machine, so he faked the machine. And I think that's something that can only happen in this age of social media. I find it a very interesting story. So, with that being said, let's go back in time to past Tracy and learn all about 𝗏𝗏, the band that fooled the world. See you soon. Hey everyone, Tracy Barkley coming at you here with Keto and Crime. I don't know if you noticed, but I did change my channel name to more accurately reflect what's going on here. I'll be talking a little bit about keto, a little bit about true crime, and hopefully you'll find something that interests you. And along those lines, for those of you listening at my podcast right now, Thought Crime, I hope you will all take the time to come over to my YouTube channel, and people from my YouTube channel, if you will, click the link below, go check out my podcast. It's a great way to put on some white noise if you're cleaning the house or driving to work or even at work, as long as you put some earbuds in. Don't want to get anybody in trouble with their boss, but I would certainly appreciate any kind of listen you can give me, because that's how this channel grows. Channels like True Crime and things like this are kind of suppressed on YouTube a little bit. They're demonetized heavily. They're throttled a little bit. So sharing is a great way to get my word out there. Be a podcast or a YouTube. I would really like people to be able to see what I do, because I really try to be factually accurate here and give the whole truth. So that's what we're doing over here. And today we're looking at a gentleman that did not tell the truth, and it got him into trouble. This is one that it's actually the 1-year anniversary of this happening, and there's a reason why I chose this date. I'm going to get into that toward the end. But if you've never heard of this, it's quite a story. I highly encourage you to Google and YouTube this to see other points of view. But really, it was really an interesting case. We're talking about 𝗏𝗏, the fake band who put on a fake tour and got fame and notoriety
from it. I bet you're thinking, what? Because that was exactly my reaction when I first heard of this. So I had to delve into it and find out the whole story. So let's get into it. To say the word band might be a little presumptuous of me. Really, it was one guy, this gentleman right here, 𝗟𝗲𝗃, who actually was born Jared Ames in Moberly, Missouri in the late 1990s. So he's definitely of the Gen Z age group. That's his wife, 𝗟𝗀. He grew up in a working class, middle class, Midwestern family. Had one older brother, Scott. Grew up as a lover of music. Spent a lot of his time writing music, recording music in his room. Learned to play about 3 instruments by the time he was a teenager. Drums, bass guitar, rhythm guitar. He learned how to play all of those. And he and his brother were actually in a pretty successful band when they were both teenagers called 𝗬𝗏. It was a black metal band, if you're not familiar with heavy metal, and I'm certainly not. I mean, I was into the hair bands in the 1980s, but those were hardly heavy metal. So, but if you're really into the metal scene or don't know, a black metal band is a band that has a lot of thrashing tones, really dark lyrics, and they had a band like this called 𝗬𝗏 that actually had some success. They actually played a tour in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands area to capacity crowd, so they were actually really good. But after that band broke up, Jared went on to play in another band called Abigail Williams, which is based out of Phoenix, Arizona. Pretty well-known band in the black metal circuit. The only problem with them is they can't seem to keep members. They keep turning over. Not a very good cohesive troop of guys there, so the lineup is constantly changing, and Jared was one of those that quickly came in and quickly came out. So he married very young, at 18, to his wife 𝗟𝗀. They weren't particularly great students, so that they wanted to pursue music as their background. That's exactly what they did. They grew up their entire lives in Missouri, and one day Jared supposedly, this is how legend goes, Jared had a bad coughing attack and due to smoking, and actually ended up coughing so much that his lungs started to bleed. And so he coughed up a bunch of blood, and he says that while he was standing there over his bathroom sink as a teenager, looking into that sink full of blood, he wondered if he was doing the right thing, that life is short and he needs to get out there and pursue what he really wants to do. So as a result, in 2012, he packed up 𝗟𝗀 and they headed for Los Angeles, California, so that he could really get his music career on track. He basically left everything behind. He shut down his personal Facebook, all of his social media, cut off all contact with his family, including his brother Scott. In fact, one of the last posts seen on Jared's personal Facebook page was a plea from his father just asking him to call home and let them know he was okay. So for some reason, this guy absolutely wanted no contact with his family. So he and 𝗟𝗀 took off to Los Angeles, California in 2012. As I said, had some very successful bands with his brother and had one tour with Abigail Williams. Once he's in LA, he really starts to concentrate on building his own essentially one-man band. There was no other people in this band. He officially changed his name from Eames to 𝗬𝗏, started his band called 𝗬𝗏, but he was the only member. He actually put out an entire album called Breaking the World, and I'm going to show you a video clip from the breakout single from that album.
I lie awake at night, just buried in my mind. I feel it burn inside. The will is gone, the will to carry on. Will to carry on.
And as you can see, he's the only one that you can see in that video, because he sang lead vocals, he played all the guitar riffs, he played the drums. You have to say the dude's very talented, so he literally put out an entire album by himself, including videos, most likely in his apartment, because studio time's very expensive. Having lived in Nashville, Tennessee, I can tell you, I know studio time's very expensive. I know how much it cost just to record my first comedy album, and that was only me and an audio engineer. I can only imagine what it would cost to get musicians and everything else to get out a musical album. So very expensive. So he was able to do all this by himself, which is a testament to the dude's talent. And he decided he wanted to go on the road with his band. So he started doing the one thing you should never do on social media. He bought a following. He created a Facebook profile for 𝗏𝗏. He created a Twitter, an Instagram, and instantly, within a month, the likes and the followers on all those accounts jumped from 0 to 50,000. The same with his YouTube channel. His YouTube channel is still active here. Now he has a lot of fans because of what happened. But in the beginning, he went from 0 to 10,000 subscribers overnight. And I don't know if you're aware, but you can buy followers. Just Google, buy followers, buy subscribers. There's 100 different companies out there that will sell you what they call real subscribers, and really what these subscribers are bot or dummy accounts from other countries that are programmed to go in and like or subscribe to a channel, and that even go in later on and like and comment on posts. So he had this huge blow up of social media overnight. He had all these comments and likes on all of his engagements. He had women saying things like, I want to lick the sweat from Jared's body. I'd let him do anything to me. Just stuff you would expect, I guess, to see people that had discovered a rock god would say. So you start seeing all this engagement. You start seeing live footage of concerts. But remember, Jared is a one-man show. So you were seeing crowds, and you were seeing guitarists and drummers and Jared singing, but then you never actually saw those people, like the footage in one frame. You never saw the audience and Jared in the frame. You saw Jared, you saw a guitar player, you saw a drummer, then you saw a screaming crowd. So basically, he and his wife were taking stock footage of rock concerts, splicing it with footage of Jared playing, and creating live concert footage. And then they were putting it with all these comments on his social media to fake a following. Along this time, he decided it was time to really go on the road. So along with his wife, 𝗟𝗄𝑐, he went out seeking management, as one does in LA. And he teamed up with a KC Marshall from Stage Right Booking to put on a 10-stop Western European tour in November of 2018. He also signed with a management firm called Aligned Artist Management under the supervision of a 𝗙𝗍𝗍 Golding and a 𝗂𝗶𝗏𝗻s to help him get the tour started. And what do you need for a tour? You need a band. So 𝗙𝗍𝗍 Golding placed a call to 3 potential band members. He wanted a drummer, a rhythm guitarist, and a bassist. So Lisa set out trying to get him a backing band, whereas KC Marshall started contacting people in clubs in Europe, and these are well-known underground music and heavy metal music venues in Europe. The underground heavy metal scene is huge in Western Europe, and started pitching Jared as a one-man wonder with a one-time opportunity to see this multi-talented person. They touted his huge social media following, his concert footage, everything to try to get these well-known venues to book him. Now, as a comedian that books a lot of her own shows, I can tell you, I'm sure it's very much the same for the music industry. There's 2 ways to book. One, you get the actual venue to put their weight behind you and bring you in and pay you to perform to help bring people in, and that's only for people that have the biggest followings, your A-listers. Jared was certainly in no, even with his faked social media presence, most people hadn't heard of him, so he was not in a position to have these clubs bring him in, pay him X amount of dollars to play, and then get their money off the tickets. You had to do it the second way, which is basically you or your production company rents out these venues for the night, pays a booking fee, and then sells the tickets themselves. And that's exactly what this Casey Marshall did. He used a faked electronic press kit, which is basically what most road entertainers use, touting their social media, their following, their past albums, what have you. So he used all of this faked stuff to get these venues to allow them to rent out these venues for a night in November and sell tickets online. And then they would take their cut, the venue would take their cut, plus make money off the drinks and the food. So that's how this 10-city European tour stacked up. Now let's get into the thick of it. Lisa Goulding reached out to 3 backing performers in July of 2018. You had Gavin Carney, who is the bass guitarist, Joe Prunera, who is a rhythm guitarist, and Dane Davis, who is a drummer. All these people lived in the Southern California or Nevada area. Gavin and Dane lived in Southern California. One worked as an auto mechanic, the other worked as an audio engineer, and Joe Prunera worked as an audio engineer for the Wind River Casino in Las Vegas. All 3 of them received phone calls from Lisa at Aligned Artist Management asking them to come over to LA to audition for a new band called 𝗏𝗏, who is gearing up for a 10-stop European tour. And if you've ever worked in the music business, you know, or the comedy business or any type of road entertainment business, getting a call to tour with somebody that's paid is a huge, huge advantage, because most of the time you pay local gigs, you go back to your day job. That's just the way it works. So all these people were excited, though Joe, in interviews, and you can find him here on YouTube, has said that he questioned how he was found, because he said he didn't have a very big internet presence. He had a few videos of him playing guitar on YouTube, but that's about it. So he really wondered how he was found. But in any case, this Lisa called him, and all 3 of them went in to audition for Jared in LA. They went to a studio, they had a jam session. Basically, within a few hours, Jared called them back and said they had the job, and they signed them up for 𝗏𝗏's Breaking the World Tour, November 1st through 16th in Western Europe. And you can see here to the side, he had quite a few stops planned, from the UK to Germany to Scotland to Ireland. And these are all, you can Google any of the venues on this poster, and they are well-known metal venues. So this was not a second-rate tour by any stretch of the imagination. All this time, Casey from Stage Right Booking is assuring the venues that they've sold well over 100 tickets to every single concert. I believe the Underworld was told over 289 tickets had been sold. The Exchange was told that over 100 tickets had been sold, and things were groovy. But the thing of it is, if a venue books out their venue for the night to an independent booker, like was going on here, they don't really see the ticket count, so they have no way of verifying that. So they just took it on Casey's word that the tickets were selling well. So as a result, they fully staffed for the night. All these venues fully staffed for the night. They put extra liquor on the bar, all the things that you would do to have a successful evening. Meanwhile, from July to the time they left, the last of October, you had these guys who lived outside of Los Angeles, Joe in another state, coming to Los Angeles 3 to 4 times a week to rehearse while holding down their day job. You also had them cashing in on all their vacation time to actually go on the tour, plus even quitting their jobs if they didn't have the vacation time saved up. So you had a lot of people with a lot riding on this tour. So basically, they get to the day before they're leaving. They are finally told by Jared and Kelsey that they will be paid a total of $300 for the entire tour. So $30 a show, 10 shows, $300 was their pay. In addition, he promised that 𝗏𝗏 would take care of all their food, all their travel, their lodgings. So basically the $300 was their pay. Not great, but I've slept on floors before to do comedy and made $20. So having a hotel room and your airfare taken care of, your food taken care of plus $300 didn't sound too bad. So they were happy to have it. But then on the way to the airport, when they were actually leaving on Halloween of 2018, they were informed that that $300 was their pay plus their food budget. So they were lied to in that that $300 was to pay for their food for the next 2 weeks. So basically, unless they ate ramen the entire time, they were going to either break even on this tour or lose money. So they weren't happy about that, but again, they were just happy to get a free trip to Europe, is the way Joe said he looked at it. So they get to the airport. Joe's carry-on bag ended up being 1 inch over what was needed to be qualified as a carry-on bag, so he had to check the bag at the cost of $100. So there's his 100 of his 300 gone right away. And when he asked Jared if he could possibly cover that, Jared said, "Nope, I told you everybody just carries on except for the music equipment, not paying for that." So Joe lost $100 right away. Now that's kind of, if the tour had been successful, that might have been just nitpicky. I get it, but in the face of everything else that happened, I think he was kind of justified in being upset about it. So fast forward, they arrive in Europe. They check into their hotel. They go to their very first gig at the Underworld in London, and where they had actually been told that over 289 tickets had been sold. They end up playing to 3 people. 3 people showed up to this show. And they ended up playing for 3 paying customers plus their opening band.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Don't forget. Everything you want, everything you need. Why don't you believe it?
And they turned to Jared. Jared assured them that this was just some kind of mishap, some kind of mix-up with his management company. He's the artist. He just gets paid to play. He has no idea what's going on. So, okay, they said they were all jet-lagged. They were tired. They didn't think much of it. Okay, they played to an empty audience. They played it before. And they go about their merry way until they get to their second show on November 4th. Second show, they played to 7 paying customers, plus their opening band. And this went on show after show until they got to the Exchange in Bristol. And at the Exchange, the manager actually came up to Jared and demanded to know how many people they'd actually sold tickets for. Jared simply repeated what Casey, his booker, had told him. And he said, "Well, I need some verification, or we need to make this a free show because I got to have people in here. We got to sell some drinks to make some money so I can afford to pay my staff." So Joe actually said that Jared kind of flashed his long hair and said, "I don't care if you make it a free show. I'm here to play." So they made it a free show. They passed out posters trying to get people in. And in the end, he played to about 10 people that night. And while there, one of the bartenders decided he was going to delve a little bit into it and kind of started looking at Threaten's social media following and everything, and realized that all of his followers, all the people that had RSVP'd they were going to be at his tour dates, were from Brazil. That's a huge red flag, because he started actually looking at the likes, clicking on profiles, and noticing all these people were concentrated in Brazil. Well, people from Brazil aren't going to come to Europe, aren't going to come to the UK for a concert date. So after they started digging into all their social media, they realized before they left that night that he had faked his entire social media following. They even dug into the websites of Aligned Artist Management and Stage Right Booking, and discovered that all of those were linked to Jared Threaten's GoDaddy account, that he had bought all 3 of these domains, Threaten.com, Aligned Artist Management, and Stage Right Booking. He had bought all those domains and linked them to his GoDaddy account. So basically, He was all three of those entities. He was not only the band, he was his own booker, and he was his own artist management. Everything had been faked. And it also turned out that 𝗟𝗂𝘁, his wife, was the one making the phone calls under the name of Lisa. So all of this came crashing down around him, thanks to the steadfastness of the owner of the exchange. Before he left that night, Jared was confronted by the owner demanding that he pay enough money so that he could at least pay his staff minimum wage that night, and Jared did. Without question, he handed over something like $3,000 for him to be able to pay his staff. So, of course, all of these venues that had been duped started posting to social media, retweeting it. It got picked up by Metal Sucks, which is a huge heavy metal news outlet. Started digging into it. The BBC got involved, and actually, within a week, everybody knew that this was one huge hoax. Well, of course, Dane and Joe quit on the spot, and they actually had to come out of their pockets for money to buy their way back to the United States. Gavin, the bass player, was kind of stuck. He didn't have the money to get home, so he basically hung out with Jared and 𝗟𝗂𝘁 because all their other tour dates canceled. Kind of hung out with them for the rest of the 2 weeks, became close with them, ended up defending them at the end because they'd become such good friends. And eventually, it kind of died down. They all went back to the United States. Everybody was anxiously waiting for him to make a statement on this. And finally, on November 14th, 2018, he did issue a tweet where he started it by saying, "What is fake news? I made an empty room the biggest news story of the week." So he was trying to package it as if it was some Andy Kaufman, Sacha Baron Cohen joke kind of thing, some kind of big social experiment. So he was trying to make himself out to be smarter than everybody else, that he had put on this elusive, this elaborate hoax that fooled the entire world. But people weren't buying it, and he got a lot of hate, but he also got a huge fan base. His first single, which you saw the clip of earlier, his first single from his album, Living is Dying, actually went from 1,000 views on streams on Spotify to over 1 million. So he got interviews with the BBC, he got interviews with Rolling Stone, he got interviews with all these different outlets as a result of this really big hoax that he pulled off, and as a result developed a following. However, his former bandmates, Prunera and Davis, did sue him, and each ended up being awarded around $4,000 for their trouble. That sum has yet to be paid a year later. We're wondering if it ever will be. And to top it off, Threaten was booked on the anniversary of their very first tour date in 2018 at the Underworld in London. They rebooked them to play another show which took place 2 days ago in London at the Underworld. It was called Rebreaking the Underworld Tour. Jared Threaten played to a huge audience of 60 people. So I guess you could say he grew by 600% that night, because as his first show at the Exchange, he only garnered 3 people. So I guess that is an improvement, but to go all the way over to London to do that just seems... And that's another thing. People question him, where did you get the money to do this? Because you weren't a rich person. He said that he had saved all of his money from working at Burger King and installing breathalyzers in cars. He had saved literally all his money, about $20,000 worth, and basically blew through it all to put on this tour. Now, whether he actually thought that just because he had booked at all these famous venues that he would be enough of a crowd there where he would break even or make some money, maybe sell some merch, or whether it was an elaborate hoax, we don't know. But what we know is that the result of this was him getting millions of followers, another concert booked in the UK in which 60 people attended, about half of them walked out before his set was even finished. But some people ascertain it wasn't because of lack of talent, it was because of his attitude. He had reports from the other night say that he had kind of an attitude toward people, and he brought out these dummies. The one up here you see to your left over here with BBC News on it, these crash test dummies kind of throttling the media for telling the truth about him, I suppose. But they said that he walked about half the audience. So it's never a good thing for an entertainer to do. So along those lines, that's where we end. We have somebody that has a following. I don't know if he'll ever play again, but he literally fooled thousands of people, put on a tour of Europe by himself, posing as 3 or 4 different people, fooled a band, fooled these venues, and eventually got enough clout from fooling people to build himself a following. And that's the world we live in, where social media is just that powerful. I don't know what the solution is. I just thought it was an interesting case. He still owes about $10,000 in legal fees to his former bandmates. We'll see if he ever pays that, but I doubt it. I doubt it. He'll probably just keep skimming by as he has. But anyway, I thought that was an interesting story. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back soon with more. Thank you so much, guys. Ketosis, y'all. 𝗙𝗵𝗁𝗂𝗀 Keto Krime.